today we're going to be covering key 3 and key 4, the slip and the loop pattern. We're going to move on to key 3. For a slip pattern we need a punch card machine. The one that I use for all my designs on a knit master is called card number 1. So it's going to knit 1 stitch and it's going to slip 1 stitch. Need to put the yarn into the feeder again, the main yarn we've been using. Going to the back to pull it tight, so it's nice and tight, creating a bit of tension, untangling it if it gets tangled. And for my slip feature I use a contrast colour, so I've got this multicoloured yarn which is just a double knit yarn, and I'm going to put this contrast into the same feeder as the main yarn. And again, because we've started off, I'm going to just secure it onto the clamp with a knot. Then onto the carriage, I'll need to turn the tension up. So we were doing the red main yarn on 7, now we're turning it up way up to 10 and a bit, as far as it'll go. And from plain knitting I'm now just going to put it onto S for slip and then take the carriage across from left to right. I'll just do another row and then you'll see the build up. So that's 1 row, 3 rows, 4. And with this thickness of yarn, a double knit and a 3-ply, that's 4 rows is about as much as it can take, to be fair. I'm now going to take out the contrast yarn, then do a few plain rows so you can just see the slip row we've made. Now we're going to do plain knitting, so we need to go back to naught, back to tension 7, and then we're going to do some plain rows again. Now you can see the slip row we've created. It's stretchy, it's brought in another colour, it's given it a depth, and it's a good way of introducing contrast to any of my designs. I use it all the time. Now we're going to do key 4, which is a loop pattern, and it's represented as a sort of purpley line on any of my patterns. So 1 slip row, a few extra rows that the pattern will indicate how many rows to do, and then with the carriage back onto the left, we then add the contrast yarn back into the feeder. So we're going to do another slip row in a minute, so we'll set this up, make sure it's nice and tight, and now we're going to use the transfer tool again. So if you've practiced casting on and casting off, or casting off, you'll be getting familiar with this. So what we need to do to create the loop pattern is putting the transfer tool in one of the, just somewhere, picking up a loop and just popping it onto the needle above it. So in the centre of the machine we just pick up 2 loops, follow up the line and pop it on. Depending on what pattern, but it will be indicated as to where you do this, so we can do it anywhere. There, and one at the end, picking it up and putting it back. At this point we're going to move the weights up, make sure it stays on. On this particular old knit master you can bring the needles out, they can be in any old position and it will knit, but on some machines you have to actually have them in line. but trial and error. Okay, back to another slip row that we've done before. So we need to turn the tension up to 10 as before, put it onto S for slip and take the carriage across. And we're going to do this 4 times. I'm going to take the contrast yarn out. I'm going to knit some plain knitting again, back onto 7, back onto plain knitting. So here's a loop feature, and I use this a lot. Once you can do this, or once you've seen this, you'll start recognising it in most of my designs, in fact. So it just gives a loop look. This particular yarn is space dyed, so it comes in different colours, and I've made most of my garments have got this feature in somewhere. So there's the loop feature. That concludes key 3 and key 4, and in our next video we'll be focusing in on the dreaded go date, key 5.